wresting control of East Jerusalem. Palestinian petitioners say Israeli settlers, with the blessing of their government, are squeezing out the real owners. This is Inside Story. Accusations of foul play have landed the Israeli Land Administration in court. An Arab company is accusing the department of illegally leasing its land to a settler group. The move, some say, is part of a greater trend to push Arabs out of East Jerusalem. Lucy Ashton has more on the fight for control.
An overnight occupation of a house in Hebron by scores of Israeli settlers. Such illegal events have been happening for years in the West Bank and Gaza. Now settlers are also after East Jerusalem. And it appears they have the cooperation of the Israeli Land Authority, the department in charge of all public land in the city. Kerem Hamufti is an olive grove on the sandy slopes of East Jerusalem, one of the most desirable plots in the city. It was bought by the Arab Hotel Company in 1963. Then the Israelis overran the city in 1967 and said they were confiscating the olive groves for public use. But they didn't forcibly take the land until March last year. Meanwhile, the Arab company got on with its own plans.
7 years ago, we submitted plans for a hotel, shopping center and a conference hall.
At that time, the city's planning department agreed that the hotel company owned the land. The project was given the go-ahead and even supported by Ehud Olmert, then mayor of Jerusalem. Over at the Israeli Land Authority, though, a pro-settler organization called Ataret Kohanim had submitted rather different plans. They wanted to build a Jewish settlement there, and the Land Authority agreed to lease them the olive grove. Now, technically, the Land Authority had no right to do that. Under Israeli law, it can confiscate the olive grove only for public use, and Ataret Kohanim is a private enterprise. But the authority seems to have ignored that detail.
Giving the land to Ataret Kohanim will create a political fact on the ground. It will mean a new settlement for a right-wing Israeli group.
For now, the fate of Karim Mufti is unknown. That decision lies with the Supreme Court. But whatever the outcome, the court's ruling will be scrutinized by all involved.
This is a microcosm of what has been going on throughout the territories. Israel's overwhelming victory in the 1967 war saw the rapid expansion of settlements on recently captured territory. Since then, Israeli governments of all political persuasions have pumped tens of billions of dollars into their expansion. Between 1967 and 1977, Israel constructed some 30 settlements housing over 5,000 people. Today, there are more than 440,000 settlers in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. In August 2005, Israel evacuated its settlements in the Gaza Strip, yet decades of government support belie deep divisions. The international community, including the US, considers the settlements illegal. Amongst the Israeli public, most opinion polls have shown that some 60% favor evacuating West Bank settlements in exchange for permanent peace. Well, a little earlier, I spoke to Daniel Luria, a spokesman for Ataret Kohanim, the settlers' organization at the heart of the debate. He says there is no question who owns the land.
The land in question here, and it's I don't believe there's any question on this whatsoever, the land was owned by the Husseini family, and specifically by Mohammed Haj Amin El Husseini. Basically, the land was expropriated after 67, along with thousands of other dunams when the Jerusalem was liberated and Jerusalem was defined. To be honest, I think it's a little bit of a storm in a teacup. No one's really taken something illegal, that's for sure not. I mean, we are a democratic country here. The state owns the land, and that I don't believe can be questioned. If someone wants to question it, then I guess they'll go to court over it. I mean, today, basically, there is no East and West Jerusalem. It's just an intermingling of Jewish and Arab neighbourhoods. Yet we are still trying to strengthen Jewish roots there and have Jewish life everywhere. If anyone wants to claim that, then we are a regular, normal, democratic country, and someone, first of all, could have gone to court over the last 40 years, and they never did that. Someone suddenly waking up 40 years later, like I said earlier, should be questioned. Secondly, we're not talking about, a foreign conqueror here. We're talking about Jews coming back home. We've liberated Jerusalem in 1967, and we are back home. If someone claims that they acquired it before 63, then let him go to court and deal with it. That has nothing to do with us. We're not even a party of any court case here.
Palestinians squeezed out by the settlers have few options when it comes to finding new homes. In the areas of East Jerusalem where the evicted Palestinians cluster, little development is allowed by the city authorities. Those who choose to build illegally risk having their homes demolished by the authorities, and existing housing comes at a real premium. East Jerusalem is one of the most overcrowded areas in Israel and the Palestinian territories. So many Palestinians end up leaving the city for the West Bank, meaning they can't legally live or work in Jerusalem again. Well, joining me now to discuss this issue from Jerusalem, Danny Sederman, lawyer and consultant to Iramim, an Israeli NGO concerned with the future of Jerusalem. Khalil Tafakci, head of the Maps Department in Orient House, and also from Jerusalem, Amos Asail, senior columnist with the Jerusalem Post. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Welcome. Well, with the issue in question, Mr. Sederman, does Ateret Kohanim have a valid claim to the land at Karim Hamufti?
I believe this claim to be blatantly invalid, and I heard Mr. Luria, and I believe his statements were a combination of disinformation and false innocence. In the 1980s and the 1990s, there was a covert and largely illegal campaign to turn over Palestinian properties as ideological trinkets to organizations like Ateret Kohanim. It was declared illegal by an independent governmental board of inquiry, and that shut them down for a decade. What we're now seeing is a resumption of those activities, and I believe that the Israeli Supreme Court will declare this to be illegal.
Amos Asail, what do you think of this current situation?
I think that, never mind for the moment the details of both sides' arguments, what we're seeing here is the symptoms of diplomatic vacuum and political vacuum. The tragedy is that the Palestinians, under a succession of leaderships, have consistently since 1967 refused to join the political process. I'm talking within Jerusalem municipally. Never mind now more broadly in terms of the national relations between the Israelis and the Palestinians. I mean down on the ground within the municipal boundaries of Jerusalem. And because of this refusal to join the political process, there indeed have been cases along the decades in which Palestinian interests were not served as well as they may have been served had they been prepared to join the political process and be represented in Jerusalem City Hall.
Khalil Tafakci, do you agree with that philosophical approach to the situation?
First of all, you know that Israel, when they occupied East Jerusalem and they expand Jerusalem from 6.5 square kilometer to 72 square kilometer, they started to confiscate land by using public purposes or absentee voting or planning and zoning. Now, Mr. Sharon, when he was Minister of Housing in 1990, he has a plan for Jerusalem. They call it in that time 26 gates around Jerusalem. One of them is Karim Mufti. It means that for two aims. One of them, you put Jerusalem as one united under Israel control, and for the future there is no East Jerusalem as capital of Israel for Palestinians. So for this issue, I think that the Israel is an ideology for East Jerusalem to minimize the Palestinian, to confiscate it or the private land. They're using, as you know, that my colleagues, they say that this is Israel policy, but the Israel policy say that this is our land and this is, we liberate our land, and as you know that this is the end of the future of Jerusalem.
Mr. Asail, is there a deliberate attempt to Judaize and reshape East Jerusalem while choking out the Palestinian population?
I am unaware of the existence of such a policy, and moreover, I think that should anyone harbor such policies, they would be impractical. And most Israeli leaders are practical people. If you take, for instance, Jerusalem's current mayor, who comes neither from the right nor from the left, but from the ultra-Orthodox population of Jerusalem, this is not his agenda. The agenda, when it comes to Jerusalem specifically, is to keep a reasonable equilibrium of tolerance among its very disparate and varied populations. And I think that overall, in a 40-year perspective, this was actually quite remarkably accomplished. There have been aberrations, there have been interruptions, both from zealots from this side and from that side. And once again, I say that to maintain the daily equilibriums here, it would be very useful if everyone who lives in the city would take part in its political process.
Danny Sederman, do you think that there can never really be a serious debate when from the outset Israel doesn't deem East Jerusalem occupied territory?
I think that that's changing. First off, I would like to humbly disagree with my colleague. The Palestinians of East Jerusalem are not Israeli. They've never seen themselves as Israeli. We've never treated them as Israeli. They do not have citizenship. They are not part of the political process. Yes, there are expropriations. More than 35% of the land of East Jerusalem has been expropriated from Palestinians, almost exclusively to build for Israelis. This is the calculus of national struggle. Now, I want to put this in perspective. My late dear friend and Khalil Tufakci's boss, Faisal Husseini, used to say to me under circumstances like this, Danny, you're creating facts on the ground, but we, the Palestinians, are the facts. The Palestinians are not losing this war, and Israelis are coming to recognize that Jerusalem will be a politically divided city. The danger in what we're seeing is that it will make a political resolution more difficult, and because of the extreme nature of the settler organization, it contains the seeds of transforming a nasty but manageable and soluble political conflict into a religious one. The settlers of Ateret Kohanim have messianic overtones, and this could easily turn into a fight between Hamas, Ateret Kohanim, Jihad, Armageddon, Melchemet Mitzvah, Armageddon, and the Second Coming, hopefully in that order.
Mr. Tufakci, is there a feeling amongst Palestinians that the settlers are above the law?
No, first of all, the government behind the law. Because everything that when the Ateret Kohanim or Ateret Shovanim or all the settlers who was occupied and make a problem for the Palestinians inside East Jerusalem, and all the time they say that this is our and this is we want to liberate our land from the Palestinian, the occupier. I think that the government and all the layer and the high Supreme Court is behind the settlers. So all the time when the Palestinian went to the court or Supreme Court, we lose the cases. And when we win in the one case, the Israel changed it from settlers to police station as what's happened inside East Jerusalem. Many times we win in the Supreme Court, but the Israel say we accept it, but we need it for security. I think that the settlers inside Israel, especially for Jerusalem and Ateret Kohanim, the biggest group inside East Jerusalem, who is working quickly to occupy and to control, especially the old city and the Silwan area. I think that these people, all the money, all the court is behind them.
All right, gentlemen, stay with us. We're taking a short break now on Inside Story. When we come back, we will discuss settlement expansion and its effects on future peace. Don't go away.